Welcome back to Weekends with Alex Witt. In Washington right now, time quickly running out for the Congressional Supercommittee to reach a deal. By Wednesday, they must find at least $1.2 trillion to cut from the deficit. So will they succeed or fail? Good questions for today's edition of Fact or Fiction. Joining me from Washington is David Hawkings, editor of the CQ Roll Call Daily Briefing. Good morning to you, David.
Good morning, Alex.
So we're going to get right to our first fact or fiction question about the chances of a deal. What do you see it? Fact or fiction? Because House Speaker John Boehner is now pessimistic a deal will be reached.
That's a fact. He's very pessimistic. They made what they described, they on the Republican side described as essentially their last best offer. It was a limited offer that would actually only go halfway towards that $1.2 trillion target that you mentioned, but it would avoid both the tough cuts to Medicare and Medicaid that the Republicans think are essential to any big deal, and the tax increases that the Democrats think are essential to getting a big deal.
Okay.
And it was still rejected by the Democrats.
Right. Okay, fact or fiction here. If the Supercommittee does not reach a deal next week, automatic spending cuts would go into effect right away.
That is not true. That is a fiction. And in fact, that is one of the main reasons why it seems unlikely that we'll get a deal. Because unlike the two times earlier this year, the time in March when the government came within about 15 minutes of shutting down and then there was a deal, and then in August when the government came within a day or two of defaulting on its debt and there was a deal, this time the punishment or the consequence, the bad consequence for no deal, doesn't take effect for more than a year. It doesn't take effect until the start of 2013, so that gives these lawmakers essentially plenty of time beyond this weekend under different rules that make a deal a little bit more complicated, but the punishment isn't set to go into effect until the start of 13.
Fact or fiction here. If the Supercommittee does reach a deal next week, it would automatically take effect without passing Congress.
That's also fiction, but as a practical matter, if there is a deal next week, it would be almost certain that Congress would approve it. The rules are that if the Supercommittee reaches a deal, Congress would then have 1 month to take it or leave it. They could either accept it or reject it. They couldn't amend it. It would be an up or down vote in the House and an up or down vote in the Senate with just 51 votes required as opposed to the usual 60, no filibusters or any of that fancy stuff in the Senate. But as a practical matter, if there's going to be a deal, there are going to be enough Democrats and Republicans on the Supercommittee that support that deal that it would be essentially a greased pig for the full Congress.
Get it through. Okay. Fact or fiction, if the Supercommittee does not reach a deal next week, the issue could be decided in the 2012 elections?
Absolutely a fact. I think that's where we're headed. I think that if there's no deal, it's because the rank and file on both sides, Republicans and Democrats alike, say we'd rather argue about this on the campaign trail. We'd like to present our vision of government. The Democrats would like to present their vision of repealing the tax cuts on the wealthiest, and the Republicans would like to repeal more spending cuts, and that's what they'll argue about all next year.
Okay. A very stylish David Hawkings there with his bow tie. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Come
you,
see us
Alex.
again. All right.